We've got video. He came off the roof. He came up here to the parking lot, got in the car with an individual, and they drove away. Well, that's not the story that came. So that he escaped another route, and there are people who are coordinating this thing. I do not believe that 30-06 that they showed recovered in the bushes was ever on the roof. I think it was in the bushes to start with. And now I'm not saying that Tyler Robinson wasn't on the roof. I'm not saying he didn't pull a trigger. I was in very, very close proximity. Some people started, running. Everyone was trying to process. And I thought, this is a gunshot, and there's going to be more of them. I thought it could turn into a mass shooting. So I go to the people closest to me. Everyone's ducking down behind the concrete retaining walls, and some of them were still kind of oblivious, but there were two people that were standing there. Two girls, very goth, very black, and I did right here. Did you hear that? Was that right here? They said, yeah, it was just right over there. So they're confirming, yeah, the shooter or wherever that sound came from is right here. The thing that didn't really dawn on me is that they were not running. They were not frightened. In fact, as I stepped up, I heard one of the girls, and they were talking to each other, and they're looking at these kids, looking at the scene down below them of all these people fleeing for their lives. And she says, "Go F yourselves." Like I say, I was not processing that. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I thought this is a separate conversation. I don't know what it is. In hindsight, as I've watched that over and over, it's like these people were not afraid. If they're saying the shooter.
Okay, I didn't want to leave you guys on a crazy weekend cliffhanger. I needed to get that information out as soon as possible. Obviously, you can probably see that I received some information, a communication, which answered a lot of questions that the public has had about the story, or rather the non-story that we are getting from the feds, the push that Tyler Robinson is this lone shooter, which they're trying to establish as a fact. Some of the burning questions that we had, okay, well, if he turned himself in, how did he also not confess? I now have the answers to that. The main point, the reason why this information came to me, is because there's a narrative being spun right now by the media that Tyler Robinson is or was suicidal. That is not true. And that's a very scary thing when suddenly they're saying he's suicidal and, he's in solitary, and he's not suicidal. So that was the reason why this information urgently came to me. Obviously, I know a lot more.
The first time I saw it, my reaction was instant. That had to be the bullet. The angle matched the wound, the shirt puffing up, the trajectory, everything. And if that's true, then the official story doesn't just have holes, it collapses completely. Tonight, we step inside one of the most controversial cases of our time, a case that has divided families, flooded timelines, and left a nation asking the same haunting question: do we really know who pulled the trigger? Within hours of the shooting, the headlines were everywhere. The name Tyler Robinson, the man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. His face was splashed across every news network. His arrest was treated like the end of the story, but what if it was only the beginning? New medical reports, eyewitness accounts, and forensic contradictions are painting a picture that prosecutors would rather you ignore. A picture that suggests Tyler Robinson may not be the man behind the gun. And if that's true, then an innocent man could be sitting in a cell right now, awaiting the death penalty, while the real shooter walks free. This story isn't just about one man or one trial. It's about the cracks in a system we're told to trust. It's about how quickly evidence can be shaped into a narrative. And it's about the terrifying possibility that justice itself has been hijacked. Because what happened on September 10th, 2025, wasn't just another headline. It was the day an auditorium full of families witnessed chaos unfold in seconds. A day when faith, freedom, and the future of America were interrupted by a single shot. A day when thousands of people believed they saw the truth, but may have only seen a carefully chosen version of it. Tonight, we're not taking the official story at face value. We're asking the questions no one else is asking. We're following the evidence others overlook, and we're going to push until every shadow is exposed. This isn't just about a courtroom. It's about truth. It's about justice. And it's about whether the wrong man is behind bars while the real shooter is still free. This case is far from over. And the more we uncover, the more questions demand answers. If you believe truth and justice matter, help us keep this investigation alive. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video, because the closer we look, the more the official story begins to unravel. Within hours of the shooting, the city of Orem, Utah was transformed into a fortress. Roads were sealed off, helicopters circled the campus, officers in tactical gear swept through buildings, room by room, searching for any trace of the gunman. Parents who had come to hear Charlie Kirk's message were now being evacuated in tears, clutching their children tightly. As the night stretched on, the manhunt intensified. Law enforcement agencies from across the state joined in. By dawn, police announced they had their suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Washington, Utah. A young man with no prior criminal record, suddenly branded as the assassin who pulled the trigger that ended Charlie Kirk's life. According to investigators, Robinson had positioned himself on a rooftop overlooking the auditorium, armed with a bolt-action rifle. Detectives claimed his DNA was recovered on the trigger. Surveillance footage allegedly placed him near the building in the hours before the event. And hidden under his computer keyboard, officers say they discovered a handwritten note that read, "I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." For investigators, it was the perfect story, a motive, a plan. And now, a suspect in handcuffs. Within 24 hours, prosecutors charged Robinson with aggravated murder, obstruction of justice, and felony discharge of a firearm in the presence of children. They announced they would pursue the harshest penalty possible, death. To the public, it looked like swift justice. But behind the headlines, cracks in the case were already beginning to form. But the deeper you look, the less the pieces fit together. The official version of events says Tyler Robinson fired a high-powered rifle from a rooftop, sending a single round through Charlie Kirk. But newly surfaced medical documents tell a different story. According to surgical staff who worked on Kirk in his final moments, the bullet did not pass through his body. There was no exit wound. Instead, the round was recovered, lodged deep in the tissues of his neck. And it's not just where the bullet stopped, it's the direction it traveled. A source familiar with the medical imaging revealed that the path of the bullet suggests it entered from behind, moving forward. That trajectory is completely at odds with the elevated rooftop position where police claim Robinson was hiding. Forensic ballistics experts we consulted stress this is not a minor detail. A bolt-action rifle fired from a rooftop should have sent the bullet on a downward path and almost certainly out the other side of Kirk's body. High-powered rounds, like the one allegedly used, are designed for penetration. The idea that it would remain lodged inside after striking only soft tissue is, in their words, highly unusual. One expert went further, suggesting that the only way this could happen is if the bullet had ricocheted before impact, or if an entirely different weapon was used. Both possibilities introduce major contradictions into the state's narrative. And then comes the chilling implication: if the bullet didn't come from above, then it may have come from much closer, possibly ground level. Maybe even from someone within the auditorium itself. The evidence, once thought to close the case, now raises a far darker possibility that the real shooter was closer than anyone imagined. But it's not just the medical evidence that raises questions, it's what people in that room actually experienced. Dozens of eyewitnesses echo the same thing: the shot didn't sound distant. It wasn't muffled, it wasn't faint. It was sharp, immediate, so loud that several described their ears ringing as if a gun had been fired right beside them. Many insist the sound came from inside the auditorium itself, not from a rooftop far away. Videos captured by audience members seem to support this. In clip after clip, people react within a fraction of a second. They duck, scream, and dive for cover almost instantly. That kind of reaction suggests they heard the sound right on top of them, not delayed, not echoing from a building across campus. In fact, audio engineers say that human instinct responds differently to close-range gunfire than to echoes at a distance, and these crowd reactions look much more like the former. And then there are the chilling details reported by those closest to the stage. Several attendees sitting near the front say they noticed movement behind the stage just before the shot rang out. A shadow, a flicker, someone shifting where no one was supposed to be. At first, those accounts were brushed aside as panic or confusion. But combined with the trajectory of the bullet, those details suddenly feel far more significant. Experts who reviewed the videos say the audio itself could hold the key. By triangulating the sound across multiple recordings, investigators could pinpoint the location of the gunfire with surprising accuracy. It's a technique used in both law enforcement and military investigations. Yet, despite having access to dozens of clips, police have released no official audio analysis to the public. And that silence leaves us with two possibilities. Either investigators already know something they haven't shared, or they haven't looked closely enough. Either way, the gap between what the witnesses heard and what the state claims grows wider every single day. If the witnesses and the medical evidence raise doubts, then the digital trail is what prosecutors cling to the hardest. To them, it's the smoking gun, not in his hand, but on his devices. Investigators say that Robinson's online footprint reveals a man filled with anger toward Charlie Kirk. Court filings point to a string of text messages sent in the weeks leading up to the shooting. In one, Robinson allegedly vented to a partner, saying he was done with the hate and suggesting that some voices shouldn't be allowed to speak without consequence. On the surface, it looks damning, a young man furious at Kirk's politics, perhaps radicalized enough to act on that rage. Then came the discovery under his computer keyboard, a handwritten note. It read, "I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Combined with his digital rants, prosecutors framed it as a manifesto, a clear plan, a clear motive, and a clear admission of intent. But defense attorneys and even some independent analysts warn that digital trails can be misleading. Words can be twisted, context can be lost. Messages written in frustration or exaggerated in anger can suddenly become Exhibit A in a capital murder trial. And physical evidence, like a note, can be planted. After all, who hides a confession in the most obvious place, directly under a keyboard in their own home? For critics of the state's case, it looks too neat, too convenient. A suspect with political anger, incriminating texts, and a handwritten note that all point in the same direction. Almost as if someone wanted Robinson to be the first person police would look at. A scapegoat, a decoy. A man with just enough noise in his digital life to become the perfect fall guy. If that's true, then the very evidence meant to convict Tyler Robinson may be the clearest sign of a setup. For the Kirk family, this trial is not about politics or conspiracy theories. It is deeply personal. They lost a husband, a father, a son. In every court hearing, they sit only feet away from the man accused of pulling the trigger, searching for answers that can never bring Charlie back, but might at least deliver justice. Candlelight vigils have been held across the country, where mourners speak about Kirk's influence, his words, and the void left behind. At these gatherings, tears flow freely, but so do calls for unity, for people to stand together in the face of violence. But outside those same courthouses, the atmosphere is very different. Protesters line the streets, their voices clashing. Some demand harsher penalties for politically motivated crimes, insisting that Robinson's conviction is essential to send a message. Others, equally passionate, warn that rushing to judgment could destroy an innocent man's life and let the real shooter escape accountability. The divide is sharp, and it runs deep. On one side, grief, anger, and the search for justice. On the other, doubt, suspicion, and the haunting possibility that the wrong man is on trial. And hovering above it all is a justice system under immense pressure, knowing that if the trajectory evidence holds up in court, the entire case against Tyler Robinson could collapse. The stakes could not be higher. Not only is one man's life hanging in the balance, but so is the credibility of the system meant to protect us all. And so we are left with questions. Questions that refuse to go away. If the bullet path shows a shot from behind at close range, how could Tyler Robinson have fired it from a distant rooftop? If witnesses insist the sound was sharp and immediate, why does the state ignore their voices? If the weapon recovered should have produced an exit wound, why was the bullet lodged in Kirk's neck? And if the digital evidence is so damning, why does it feel almost too perfect, like it was left behind for investigators to find? One man now faces the possibility of death by lethal injection. A family mourns in search of closure, and a nation divided and desperate for truth waits for answers that may never come. But here's the haunting reality. If Robinson isn't the shooter, then the person who killed Charlie Kirk is still out there. Free, unnamed, unaccountable. And until the truth is fully exposed, every stage, every lecture hall, every gathering carries the weight of that possibility. This story isn't over. Not for the Kirk family. Not for Tyler Robinson. And not for the rest of us. We're going to keep following every hearing, every piece of evidence, and every development until the questions are answered. If you believe truth matters, if you believe justice matters, stay with us. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with others who care about uncovering what really happened. Because the closer we look, the more the official story begins to unravel.